Alright, we are back.
Their affliction tree. In today's video, we're going to go over the best race and class combinations in vanilla WoW, and what class maximizes their race's potential as much as possible. Starting off with the Alliance and working our way down. Keep in mind, Druid is not going to be in this video, as only one race on both the Horde and Alliance can be them, and this video is being made with both PvE and PvP comparisons, and we'll be discussing both as much as possible. Starting off with everyone's favorite pet tamer, the Hunter. When taking a look at all of the playable races that could even be a Hunter on Alliance, you had Dwarves and Night Elves. And while neither of these races had good active racials for PvE, few races did. However, the racials were very good for PvP. Like the Dwarves' Stone form because of how it removed all poisons, bleeds, and diseases. But more importantly, allowed the Dwarf to break out of a Rogue's Blind, with Night Elves having their Shadow Mail to go invisible, and with both of them having their own resistances as well. However, the Dwarves being arguably better here, as Frost Mages were very popular during this time, and being able to potentially resist a Frostbolt could mean victory. But Night Elves also being able to resist nature damage could make them stronger against things like Shaman's Earthshock, Lightning Bolt, or a Druid's Thorns or Wrath, for example. For the PvP side of things, they were both equally strong, with Dwarves pulling through just a tiny bit more in this regard. For PvE content, the difference between these two races is very minor, and in an unstated passive effect with Night Elves, they have the highest base agility in the game because they start off with an extra 9 points of agility for a total of 22 agility, while Dwarves only had 16. Though Dwarves did start off with gun specialization. While Hunters rarely had guns as their BIS weapon, this does mean you could get more use out of those weapons, allowing you to gain more benefit from the items usually ignored by other Hunters. And the Night Elf agility bonus squeezes out just that much more with its very tiny damage increase no matter what ranged weapon they had. Even still, both of these races are very close to each other, and you're better off playing whichever you like the most. If you want to be ridiculously good looking though, you might want to be a dwarf. Next up we have the Mage. Gnomes are the way to go for this class. Humans did not offer up much in the ways of the Mage, and this is because it was just sword and mace specializations, which the Mage didn't need. Their perception practically had no use in PvE, and although it was rather good in PvP to prevent rogues and feral druids from getting the jump on you, which is a big threat to them. And while the human spirit increased their spirit by 5%, this only gave them a tiny boost to mana generation. But it still had, minor uses in PvP and PvE. Mainly to increase the time before they had to sit and drink from blizzard farming, or give them some amount of mana back between fights and battlegrounds. Also of note, because of diplomacy granting 10% more reputation, if getting to max rep faster to unlock powerful items is more important to you, like say in a Season of Mastery, this is the go-to choice. Although this is more for people who are limited on time. So for any class that can be human, if time is important to you, this is the go-to race. The Gnome Mages being far better for PvE and PvP content because Expansive Mind increases their intellect by 5%, which not only boosted their total mana but also buffed their spell crit chance. Escape Artist is an amazing ability to have access to in PvP, allowing them to escape from effects like Entangling Roots or Improved Hamstring. And the Engineering specialization was also great to have, since Engineering is the best profession for mages to have. Now we have the Paladin. Paladin Vanilla wasn't the best class, but if for some reason you wanted to play this, then you have two races to choose from, being a dwarf or a human. So which of the two is better? Well, your best bet is choosing a human. And why is that? See, humans are significantly better for PvE due to their extra weapon skills, thanks to mace and sword specialization. Especially since there are plenty of amazing endgame swords like the Corrupted Ashbringer, and hammers like Sulphurus, Hand of Ragnaros. Higher weapon skills as a melee spec meant a lower chance to miss your attacks, have a glance, or be dodged. Diplomacy played a bigger part for paladins because some of their best in slot gear required reputation checks, and allows them to get some of those BIS slots sooner than dwarves normally could. Dwarves, however, are better for PvP because of their stone form and frost resistance, but provided very little in regards to PvE content, outside of a few minor exceptions, like fighting Sapharion and Naxxramas, as he required frost resistance. But that one fight still made humans reign king because of their overall combat prowess, and Phosphorus's gear could be obtained by every class, making humans once again the best choice for melee classes. If you're looking to heal as a paladin, the humans are better than dwarves due to their increase of spirit as well, meaning the human is the overall superior choice for paladins for both damage and healing if you decide to play this class. For our main healers in vanilla, priest is a tough decision. The three races that could be a priest are humans, dwarves, and night elves, and all three have their own very strong racials. So, which is better? Well, this is between the humans and dwarves, as the night elves having Shadow Meld offered nothing in comparison to what humans and dwarves did, while each of these races had one different priest racial, feedback for humans and fear ward for dwarves, both of them having Desperate Prayer, a large instant cast self-heal. So, between these two, this is very difficult one to say, as they both had equal levels of worth in many different situations. Humans, having the increased 5% spirit stat, helped both their mana regeneration and your healing, as this stacked well with the spiritual guidance talent, which increased your spell damage and healing based on your total spirit, as well as the meditation talent, which lets you regen mana in combat. These three passives made this stat very important, especially for long fights, along with humans just having good overall stats, which made them great for really any class. And while feedback was strong, it required a niche opponent. So when you did get use of it, it was good, but that was rare. Dwarves, however, have Fear Ward, which allows them to place a buff on a teammate that will prevent the next fear effect on them and consume the ward in the process. This is an extremely useful spell in PvE, this being an alliance-defining mechanic even, leading to Alliance being by far the best raiding faction in vanilla, as this ability alone made many difficult fights far easier. And since dwarves are better than humans in PvP during this time, allowing them to use their Stone Form ability, they could use Stone Form to break out of a rogue's blind and then use their Desperate Prayer to heal themselves, and doing this could mean the difference between life and death. So, which is better for what activity? Well, if you're just looking for raw healing potential, PvE-wise, human is better. But for actual PvE, Fear Ward is just way too good to pass up, as many bosses love to cast Fear, and a quick way to wipe is for a tank to get feared. So, it's common to have Fear Ward up 100% of the time in the main tank, using multiple dwarves. And when it comes to PvP, dwarves and humans come neck and neck, with dwarves having good abilities to counter direct attacks, with humans having better healing and stealth detection. Rogues. For the class that people play, they hate themselves. The rogue is unique as every race and alliance can play one. So, out of dwarves, gnomes, humans, and night elves, which is the best? For PvE content, humans without a doubt. Humans, once again, reign due to their mace and sword specialization, which, as mentioned earlier in the video, a higher weapon skill means a lower chance to miss, get a glancing blow, and lower chance to have your attacks be dodged, which for a rogue can increase their damage by a pretty significant amount. But what about PvP, you ask? Well, out of the races, the best one for PvP combat is gnomes. Although dwarves still have a fair bit of use, gnomes because of their escape artist ability. And since the best way to control rogue is just to use those effects, a gnome rogue can skip getting improved sprint in their talent trees, as this is basically a better version of it, and allows them to spec further into damaging ones instead, like Cold Blood for example, making them the kings of PvP. Dwarves still of course have their Stone Form, allow them to remove various dots that may normally prevent them from casting Vanish. Now, this isn't to say that picking a dwarf or a night elf is basically bad or anything, as you can absolutely play them if you wish to, but for a rogue specifically, you are losing out in damage by picking the other two races, and losing out on utility by picking them as well. And before we move on, if you want to farm gold using your rogue, the dwarf is a good option because of their ability to see treasures on the minimap, and paired with the rogue's ability to stealth and lockpick, this makes them a rather good gold maker. For the edgy players who want to summon demons and such, we have the warlock. Now, humans and gnomes can both be warlocks, although to no one's surprise, gnomes are vastly superior casters than humans in this case as well, just like with the mages. As you guessed, because of the expansive mind racial. Intellect is a very important stat to warlocks, maybe even more so than for mages, as the mix of increased spell crit and mana pool is far more important to a class that relies on lots of spell crit, and also constantly consuming their HP to fill their mana. Another fact being that while warlocks are strong defensively compared to mages, they do not have the same means of escape like blink, freezes, or ice blocks, meaning in PvP they are rather easy to lock down with a rogue or warrior. Escape Artist comes in handy as an amazing counter to this. And lastly, Engineering specialization is very good, as engineering is the best profession in the game for combat bonuses, especially DPS. And while for mages, humans are only a bit worse than mages, for warlocks, they are far worse. Demonic Embrace, a talent in the very first row of demonology tree, more than almost every single warlock spec takes. It decreases your spirit by 5% and increases your stamina by 15%. Do I need to say more? A class that willingly reduces its spirit by 5%, playing a race that has a racial that increases their spirit by 5%. Spirit is by far the lowest stat for warlocks, at least until Wrath of the Lich King, and I have a whole video on that if you're interested. For the warrior players out there, humans are the way to go, but all the other races can be what you're looking for. However, the reason humans rule PvE is because of their weapon specialization racials, as hitting with attacks is very important, but far more important for tanks especially, as warriors are the go-to tank. They need to be able to hit, both to generate aggro and of course to deal damage, both tanking and DPS. For PvP, however, gnomes and dwarves are strong competitors, with gnomes pulling ahead just that much more, since gnomes are able to remove movement impairment effects and stay within melee range to do damage far more often. As well as being just smaller to hit, which, believe it or not, is actually a very slight advantage in PvP. Dwarves having stone form, though, can provide them with extra armor, making them even more difficult to kill, even as a tank. But its main use is definitely around removing dots instead, which does make them decent flag carriers. However, with no real use for PvP, outside of maybe some niche situations, or acting as a tank, as long as you make up for the missing expertise. With Night Elves literally offering little to nothing for warriors, except maybe the memes of a stealth warrior in PvP. Now onto the Horde faction. Starting with the Hunter. With Orc, Tauren, and Troll being available to hunters, all three of these races are solid choices, and bring their own unique utility to both PvE and PvP, with Trolls being the best in PvE and Orcs the better in PvP. In PvE content, Trolls with their Berserking caused them to attack much faster, and gave a significant more amount of damage output than any other hunter race in the game, with Trolls also having the second highest base agility for hunters, and with the is huge. Tauren lacks anything that's worth it for both PvP and PvE. Even with their endurance racial, it only increases their health by 500 points, which isn't that much. The Horde Warlock is playable by both Orcs and Undead, with both of them bringing their own situational racials to the group. For Warlocks on the Horde side, they gain an advantage by playing Horde because of the benefits that the Shamans provide. Shamans give Mana Spring Totem, Tranquil Air Totem, and Mana Tide Totem, assuming the Shaman has it. This isn't as common for PvE, however, because totems are stuck to only giving the benefits to the members of the group where the Shaman is. This means that if there aren't enough Shamans in the raid, they will be focusing on buffing the melee group instead of the casters, since Wind Fury provides that much more to the melee. This also means that Warlocks will gain threat far faster than they otherwise would and have to stop doing some damage to let them drop threat. With that being said, looking at the races, when it comes to Orc Warlocks, they don't really have any notable racials for Warlocks in PvE content. The only thing Orcs have that makes just a tiny difference is their command racial. But this is dependent on what build you're running, as Warlocks have 4 good ones to play with various types of plays. Warlocks may be having the largest variety of builds available compared to other classes. Their Affliction tree focusing on shadow damage, their Demonology focusing on either sacrificing a demon to gain 1 buff, or having 1 summon to gain another for the Pattern Warlock, and Destruction to increase crit damage, and the possibility to increase fire damage, leading to working with the Succubus summon to increase all damage dealt by 10%, or Sacrifice to increase only shadow damage by 15%, the Imp summon to reduce threat caused by 20%, and give health bonus to your party, or Sacrifice to increase your fire damage by 15%. So, depending on which combo of the 2 trees you take, you can get a very separate combo. So of course, some of the builds would gain a good benefit from this, while others would not. Whereas with Undead Warlocks, the racial obviously doesn't provide any damage buffs to pets, but as you may have guessed it, the Will of Forsaken is very strong, as there are quite a few bosses vanilla that use AoE fears throughout the fight. Now when this does happen, it lets the Undead Warlock use the Will of Forsaken and skip the mechanic and keep doing damage, while their Orc counterparts might be stuck dealing with the mechanic instead. With the faster these mechanics are dealt with and the bosses get killed, the more value is added to Will of Forsaken, increasing an Undead Warlock's overall damage output. And with the Undead's Shadow Resistance racial, it only plays a tiny part in PvE combat, but does help just that much more in some raids, like when a Warlock has to tank Emperor Veclor in Encourage. Speaking overall, undead warlocks are just a tiny bit better, seeing as sacrificing your pet is more favorable and a common build to play with, along with being able to skip fear mechanics and doing more damage. Now, this isn't to say orc warlocks are bad, because they aren't by any means. It's just undead warlocks having that tiny advantage over orcs, more consistently speaking, as if you're not playing with a pet, then orcs offer absolutely nothing with the racials. Although, another benefit that undead have over orcs specifically for warlocks only, is warlocks are the only class who can change health into mana, allowing the undead after combat to spam life tap to
What can I get for you today? Hey, good. What's on your
Did you
mind?
see a lot of kobolds in there? I can't wait for the order to clear them out of the mine. The thought of their grimy hands clawing around our mine makes my stomach rumble. That's right. I have a task that I can't do while I'm guarding. In fact, it'll take you far from Loch Modan, your perfect chance for adventure. There is a dwarven armorsmith whose work I admire greatly. His name is Furin Longbeard, and his
What's
skill
on
is
your
unmatched. I need a new shield, and I must have one of his. The problem is, Furin is far to the south in the dwarven district within Stormwind, in human lands. I can't imagine why he would live there so far from Ironforge. The humans must pay him a king's ransom to keep him there. So if you want to travel and don't mind making some money, then will you send Furin my request for a shield?
till they're almost dead, and then consume a nearby body in order to fill some of their health bar back. But since Vanilla's Cannibalized doesn't actually heal for very much, only 35% of your maximum health, even this is only a situational benefit. And finally, we have the Horde Warriors. As with Alliance, every race on Horde can play a warrior. Horde Warriors have quite a big benefit of being able to raid with Shamans as well, which allows them access to Horde because of the benefits that the Shamans provide. Shamans give Mana Spring Totem, Tranquil Air Totem, and Mana Tide Touch. The Horde Warlock is playable by both Orcs and Undead, with both of them bringing their own situational racials to the group. For Warlocks on the Horde side, they gain an advantage by playing Horde because of the benefits that the Shamans provide. Shamans give Mana Spring Totem, Tranquil Air Totem, and Mana Tide Totem, assuming the Shaman has it. This isn't as common for PvE, however, because totems are stuck to only giving the benefits to the members of the group where the Shaman is. This means that if there aren't enough Shamans in the raid, they will be focusing on buffing the melee group instead of the casters, since Wind Fury provides that much more to the melee. This also means that Warlocks will gain threat far faster than they otherwise would and have to stop doing some damage to let them drop threat. With that being said, looking at the races, when it comes to Orc Warlocks, they don't really have any notable racials for Warlocks in PvE content. The only thing orcs have that makes just a tiny difference is their command racial. But this is dependent on what build you're running, as warlocks have 4 good ones to play with various types of plays. Warlocks may be having the largest variety of builds available compared to other classes. Their affliction tree focusing on shadow damage, their demonology focusing on either sacrificing a demon to gain 1 buff, or having one summoned to gain another for the pet and warlock, and destruction to increase crit damage, and the possibility to increase fire damage, leading to working with the succubus summon to increase all damage dealt by 10%, or sacrifice to increase only shadow damage by 15%, the imp summon to reduce threat cost by 20%, and give health bonus to your party, or sacrifice to increase your fire damage by 15%. So, depending on which combo of the 2 trees you take, you can get a very separate combo. So of course, some of the builds would gain a good benefit from this, while others would not. Whereas with undead warlocks, the racial obviously doesn't provide any damage buffs to pets, but as you may have guessed it, the Will of Forsaken is very strong, as there are quite a few bosses vanilla that use AoE fears throughout the fight. Now when this does happen, it lets the undead warlock use the Will of Forsaken and skip the mechanic and keep doing damage, while their orc counterparts might be stuck dealing with the mechanic instead. With the faster these mechanics are dealt with and the bosses get killed, the more value is added to Will of Forsaken and increasing an undead warlock's overall damage output. And with the undead's shadow resistance racial, it only plays a tiny part in PvE combat, but does help just that much more in some raids, like when a warlock has to tank Emperor Veclor in Encourage. Speaking overall, undead warlocks are just a tiny bit better, seeing as sacrificing your pet is more favorable and a common build to play with, along with being able to skip fear mechanics and doing more damage. Now this isn't to say orc warlocks are bad, because they aren't by any means. It's just undead warlocks having that tiny advantage over orcs, more consistently speaking, as if you're not playing with a pet, then orcs offer absolutely nothing with the racials. Although, another benefit that undead have over orcs specifically for warlocks only, is warlocks are the only class who can change health into mana, allowing the undead after combat to spam life tap till they're almost dead, and then consume a nearby body in order to fill some of their health bar back. But since Vanilla's Cannibalize doesn't actually heal for very much, only 35% of your maximum health, even this is only a situational benefit. And finally, we have the Horde Warriors. As with Alliance, every race on Horde can play a warrior. Horde Warriors have quite a big benefit of being able to raid with Shamans as well, which allows them access to Wind Fury Totem, which gives them a chance to swing in extra time for more damage. And this allows warriors to use Hamstring to trigger their auto attacks to proc Wind Fury, for even more damage. With all of the races being so close to one another, which one is the best? Well, for a DPS warrior that wants to PvE, this goes to orcs. This is because Blood Fury grants melee DPS so much power, and even though their axe specialization doesn't matter endgame, as most of the best in slot items are swords, this does play a small part while leveling up. However, for a warrior who wants to be a tank, the trolls are actually better. This is because the Berserking ratio allows them to use Heroic Strike 2 more times in their opening rotation, which not only helps them keep aggro, but it gives them quite a big damage boost. For PvP, orcs are still a top tier pick because of just how strong hardiness really is. Tauren are also a decent pick behind orcs because Blizzard gave Tauren's melee range a tiny bit more range, along with an increased hitbox size, and their War Stomp gives them just that much more crowd control, which could allow the warrior to retaliate and potentially kill the person attacking them. The undead having Will of the Forsaken is powerful as expected, but other than that, they don't offer much PvP wise for warriors, and it can be argued that the orcs having the consistency of hardiness, especially in PvP situations, just makes them the overall better choice for PvP. Although in PvE, having access to Will of the Forsaken as a tank can be useful in the same way as Fear Ward is for Alliance, so it is sometimes picked up for that. Now, it goes without saying that this is looking at all the classes and seeing what race fits them as a hardcore perspective. The differences between the races is noticeable,
Authority of the king has madly taken complete leave of his senses, and that damnable Whitebeard taken matters into his own hands, has he? The Senate will not be pleased to hear about this, not one bit. What, are you still here? Go before I call the guards. You bothered me for that. You'd be better off strapping a dead rabbit to your back and running through a troll's den than wearing that. Greetings, person.
What can I do for you?
Downstairs inside the this building?
If you ask me, there's no greater profession than a miner. And if you ask me, there's no greater miner than a dwarf. Ah, the lastest list of Brock's best pupils. I have a batch of honorary picks ready to go. I just need to chisel in the names of the students. Here are the honorary picks for Brock students. If you've already been to Thelsamar, then you should fly a griffin back there. Take the picks to our griffin master, Griff Thurden, and speak with him about the ride back to Thelsamar.
You have to get these to Thelsamar, eh? That won't be a problem. As long as you've already been to Thelsamar and spoken to Thorgrim Borrelson, then you can take one of my griffins back to him.
For a small fee, you can buy a griffin ride to Thelsamar, as long as you've already been there. Griffins will only fly you to places you've already been, so be sure to speak with every griffin master you see, so you can fly to him later. You've already been to Thorgrim, the griffin master of Thelsamar, so now you can return to him. And once in Thelsamar, you can deliver the picks to Brock Stoneseeker. Speak with me when you're ready to go.
Fuck, I forgot to skill up, man. I knew I was forgetting something. I also forgot to go to the auction house. Son of a bitch. This guy spawned. Bro, they don't have huh.
Mark my words, you won't find faster griffins anywhere in the Eastern Kingdoms than the ones right here in Thelsamar.
All right. Hopefully, no more interruptions. Trainer and auction house.
Arcane only corrupts those who are weak. Keep up on your training, or you may find a similar fate. Daylight's burning.
Can't believe there's no demon trainer over here. There's gotta be, man. Okay.
Want to make your demons more powerful? It'll cost
Yes.
you, but you've come to the right place.
Level 8, level 4, level 12.
See you around. Want to make your demons more powerful? It'll cost you, but you've come to the right place. Have a good one.
All right. Auction house. Lesser magic essence. We try to sell those.
Esteemed Dr. Gustav van Housen can train you further. He can be found in Theramore,
feet on the
treating the
ground.
wounded at the barracks.
What
The
can I
esteemed
do for
Dr.
you?
Gustav van Housen can train you further. He can be found
See
in
you soon.
Theramore, treating the wounded at the barracks.
Great to meet you. Good.
What
The
can I do?
Wildhammer dwarves might have fast steeds, but can those airy pink griffins stand the heat of the Great Forge? I think not.
DPS macros.
Hello and welcome, I am St. James, and we are going to go over some World of Warcraft classic Warlock macros today. Finally back recording some videos. I've got a brand new headset, and also I've completed my education, my course, what I've been doing, which has been sort of holding me back from making YouTube videos and doing other stuff in life. So I am finally back. So today I just wanted to go over some macros which helped me level up 2 Warlocks in total. I've got a Warlock on a PvP server, and I've got a Warlock on a PvE server, both different specs. I will be going over leveling specs in a different video, which would be multi-dotting with a Void Walker, and the second one would be drain tanking. So, these are my macros. Let's go into the system and macros. At the moment, I've only got 8 macros total, and this will be dependent on if you PvE, PvP, or even if you don't like macros or do like macros, whatever. Each Warlock has their own thing. I'm guessing it's the same with other classes such as mages and priests. So the first one is an Amplified Curse, and it also amplifies Curse of Exhaustion. So this is very good for anything that you actually want to slow down, whether it's PvP or PvE. Now, the Curse of Exhaustion can be change to Curse of Agony, depending on the situation, or depending if you even spec into Curse of Exhaustion. So that's one thing to take into consideration. The second one would be Drain Soul. So this is a spammable Drain Soul macro. What it does is you can just keep on pressing Drain Soul, and it will constantly drain the target without stopping the channeling effect and without redoing the channeling from the beginning, so you don't waste mana. It also allows you to have as many soul shards in your bag, and then once you get to like a limit, it will actually delete soul shards for yourself, so then you don't have your bag fully cluttered up with soul shards. I've actually got an add-on which tells you how many I've got in my bag at once, which is here on the left hand corner. It also tells me other useful information, but to be honest, you don't really need that. You could just open up your bag and find out how many soul shards are in there very easily, depending if your bag's clean or not. The next one is a spammable Drain Life. So this is the exact same as the Drain Soul, but instead of just draining soul, you're draining life instead. Spammable, you can just keep on spamming it until the player or the mob member is dead. The fourth one is for SL Warlocks. This allows you to cast Fel Domination into whatever demon you want. This could be changed for Succubus, you can keep the Void Walker, etc. And then the final spell would be Casting Soul Link. The next one is Healthstone. See, I have this usually on a bar, but you can change which types of health stones you've got. So you can have multiple variations of this, and you don't need to just clutter your bar. You can also have a shift click variation, which I'll show you a shift click macro in a minute. It's actually the next one. So I just have this. I usually have all my healing on the right hand side of the bar. Healing and teleports. This includes bandages, and it also includes life tap. I have life tap bound to an actual key, which is key E. So whenever I need to life tap, I'll just spam key E. The rest are actually clickable, or I might actually make these into buttons up sometime. So this one is your pet spell. Now this is the shift click one that I was talking about before. So basically, depending on what demon you've got out at that time, you could have your imp out. So your imp would do shield on one, and if you shift click, it would do your firebolt. If you've got your void walker out, you've got sacrifice, and you've got a variation of torment. Your succubus would be seduction and lash of pain, and your fellow would be the likes of spell lock and devour magic, etc. I've never used this one before, but I found this one very useful to use, especially when you got the likes of a void walker out. So at the moment I've got it on this key, so it lets me do torment, and when I shift it goes back into sacrifice, so you can easily press that. I currently have mine as the equals button on my keyboard, because I don't always use I use my right hand for movement, and the left hand is usually for my key pressing, so it's very easy for me to do obviously press it, press key, press A, E set. Let's go back onto the macro screen. Now at the beginning of the game, casting abilities one by one is pretty boring. What you can have is everything in one key, so you just have a sequence key. It just allows you to have less clutter on the screen. Now some people are against this, some people are for this. If they do resist your first spell, it will always go into your second spell, then third spell again, so you'd have to just keep on spamming it until your first spell comes back up. So let's say you've got Immolate, Curse of Agony, Corruption, and Shoot. So if the resist Immolate...
Oh, I do want Curse of Agony up first. I'm going to be flopping these around a lot. Flippity flop.
It's too far away. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet.
DKP minus. Succubus to use. Upon use, the macro will focus your target and have your succubus seduce it. When used for the second time, and your focus target, i.e. the seduction target, is alive, reduce it, regardless of what current target is. Focus on your current target, and it should that. Okay. Hmm.
I need to get closer. That's still recharging.
Bro, I can't keep my eyes open, man. I'm gonna take a nap. Tired.